this most dangerous game, as they referred to it, was a matter of human hunting. And when a mind control slave such as myself was stripped of clothes and turned loose in the woods, I was then hunted by George Bush, Dick Cheney, and Bill Clinton, among others. But they were the main ones.
We're going to stand right next to me. There you go. And then we're going to have...
There you go.
Got it? Okay.
And if you want the back, you can spread out a little bit.
I'm saying that there are people that were the people that did this to both me and Corey that are still working, they're still out there, and they're some of the richest, most powerful people in this business.
I got some names that I want to call. Alex Spiro, Desiree Perez, and the whole wicked system of Rock Nation, including you, Jay-Z.
Yes, yes.
You who say you rose from the gutter, but you have traded and bartered the souls of young men.
It was a big year for pedophile movies, so in the end, he obviously didn't himself, just like Jeffrey Epstein.
He's saying he's not afraid of 50 Cent. Why would you have to make that clear when no one's ever asked me if I'm afraid of Jay-Z?
I want everyone to be clear. No one's scared of 50 Cent.
There ain't never been no 50 Cent Jay-Z conversations. It's a huge
Nobody saw this coming, but suddenly the internet feels like it's holding its breath. Just as the fallout around the Epstein files reaches a boiling point, one unexpected name steps straight into the fire, and fans are stunned by the timing alone. 50 Cent, known for never biting his tongue, has now put Jay-Z back into the center of an already chaotic conversation, and people are asking why now, and what does he really know? Social media erupted almost instantly, with emotions running high as clips, screenshots, and old moments began resurfacing at lightning speed. Some fans say it feels calculated, others say it feels personal, but one thing is clear: this moment has reopened wounds that many believed were buried for good. Whispers turned into debates, debates turned into full-blown online wars, and suddenly the narrative felt bigger than music, bigger than rivalry, and bigger than any single post. Supporters rushed to defend, critics demanded answers, and neutral observers were left watching the tension rise with every passing hour. Nothing has been proven, nothing has been confirmed, yet the noise refuses to die down. When 50 Cent speaks during moments like this, people listen, not because everything he says is fact, but because his words have a way of shaking the room. And now, as Jay-Z's name trends alongside some of the most disturbing headlines imaginable, fans are left wondering whether this is just commentary, a warning, or the beginning of something far messier than anyone expected.
You know, Jazzo and Jay-Z were in London living it big time back in like 88. They were in this huge... I've born and raised in England, and I never saw an apartment that looked like that in England, or a flat, as we call it. I've never seen that.
There for a little bit?
They were there for like, I don't know, 5 months, something like that.
The moment the post went live, everything shifted in a way no one could have predicted. It was not loud, it was not explosive, and that is exactly why fans froze. 50 Cent did not accuse anyone of anything directly, did not present evidence, did not claim to expose secrets, yet his words landed like a match dropped into dry grass. People began rereading the caption again and again, trying to understand what he was really saying and what he was deliberately not saying. Some felt it was sarcasm, others sensed warning signs, and a few believed it was simply commentary timed too perfectly to be random. Whatever the interpretation, the reaction was instant. Timelines flooded with theories, reaction videos popped up within minutes, and long-forgotten interviews were suddenly clipped, reposted, and re-examined, as if they held hidden meanings all along. Jay-Z's fans were quick to push back, reminding everyone that online noise does not equal reality. They argued that speculation had already gone too far, and that commentary should not be confused with facts. But even among supporters, there was tension. Some admitted the timing.
Take people like Jay-Z and Pusha T, they made their living our people, so how the f they gonna stand up for our people? You know what I'm saying? But we forget that because we love Jay-Z's music so much. We love Pusha's music so much, right? But you think they would ever, oh, Beyonce had the best for somebody else?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? You think they would ever tell the truth? No, if they told the truth, they didn't go to jail. You know what I'm saying? So you have liars.
Man.
Liars are now the face of our culture.
Felt uncomfortable, especially with so many conversations already swirling around powerful names and past associations. Others insisted that this was nothing more than another example of internet culture spiraling out of control, feeding on hints instead of truth. Still, the conversation refused to slow down. Every refresh brought new reactions, and every reaction seemed to deepen the divide. Behind the scenes, industry insiders began whispering, not about proof or confirmation, but about perception. Perception, they said, is often more dangerous than facts in moments like this. One longtime producer was quoted saying that once a name gets pulled into a wider narrative, even indirectly, it becomes almost impossible to fully separate it again. Fans may forget details, but they remember the feeling. And the feeling right now, according to many observers, was discomfort mixed with curiosity. Nobody wanted to say too much, yet nobody wanted to stay silent either. Social media personalities added fuel to the fire by framing the moment as a clash of power and legacy. Some described it as an old rivalry resurfacing under new circumstances, while others painted it as something deeper, suggesting that unresolved tension from years past was finding a new outlet. None of this was confirmed, and most of it was clearly opinion, but opinions were driving the narrative faster than facts ever could. Fans dissected old lyrics, looking for lines that now felt strangely relevant. Interviews from decades ago were pulled up and replayed, not because they proved anything, but because people wanted context, patterns, and meaning. Meanwhile, reactions from those close to the situation were noticeably restrained. No statements, no dramatic denials, no emotional responses. That silence alone became another talking point. Some viewers interpreted it as confidence, others as strategy. Analysts debated whether responding would only amplify speculation, or whether staying quiet allowed others to control the story. Every possible move seemed risky, and every non-move created its own interpretation. Fans watching from the outside felt like they were witnessing a slow-building storm, one where nobody knew when or how it would break. What made the situation even more intense was the broader atmosphere online. Discussions about accountability, power, and influence were already dominating conversations, and any name connected, even loosely, was bound to be pulled into that current. 50 Cent's post did not create this environment, but it undeniably interacted with it. People began asking whether entertainers had a responsibility to be more careful during moments like this, or whether commentary itself was a form of expression that should not be policed. That debate alone split audiences into camps, each convinced the other was missing the point. Some fans expressed disappointment, saying they wished artists would stay out of such conversations unless they had something concrete to add. Others praised the boldness, arguing that commentary reflects public sentiment and gives voice to what many are already thinking. Neither side could claim certainty, yet both felt emotionally invested. Emotions ran high in comment sections, where arguments unfolded between strangers who shared nothing except a deep connection to the music and the culture surrounding it. As hours passed, the story evolved without actually changing. No new information surfaced, no official confirmations appeared, yet the narrative grew larger. Reaction channels framed the moment as a turning point, while others urged caution, reminding viewers that speculation often collapses under scrutiny. Still, even those urging restraint admitted that the situation felt different. Perhaps it was the timing, perhaps it was the history between personalities, or perhaps it was simply the weight of the broader conversation happening everywhere at once. In private group chats and closed forums, fans spoke more honestly. Some admitted feeling conflicted, torn between loyalty and unease. Others confessed they were exhausted by constant controversy, wishing for clarity instead of endless debate. A few pointed out that internet storms have come and gone before, often leaving little behind once attention moves elsewhere. But even they acknowledged that this moment carried a strange intensity, as if everyone sensed that the next development, whatever it might be, would push the conversation in a new direction. Industry veterans watching from afar noted that moments like this rarely resolve quickly. They linger, reshape reputations subtly, and influence how future actions are interpreted. A single comment, even one framed as opinion, can echo longer than intended. Fans may eventually move on, but screenshots do not disappear, and narratives once formed are difficult to undo. That reality hung over the conversation like a shadow, adding weight to every new reaction and every recycled clip. By the end of the day, the situation had become less about what was said and more about what people believed it meant. The lack of concrete claims did not stop the speculation. In some ways, it encouraged it. Viewers filled in gaps with their own assumptions, guided by emotion rather than evidence. Some felt unease, others energized, and many simply confused. Yet all agreed on one thing. This was no longer just a passing post. It had become a moment that exposed how quickly commentary can turn into controversy, and how fragile public narratives can be when timing, history, and emotion collide. The moment the post appeared, it did not feel like a normal social media update. It felt like a signal. People did not rush to like it, they rushed to screenshot it. The wording was careful, almost playful on the surface, but underneath it carried a weight that fans immediately picked up on. 50 Cent did not name facts, did not present accusations, and did not claim to reveal truths, yet the timing alone made the internet uneasy. Discussions were already swirling everywhere, and his voice entering the conversation felt intentional to many watching closely. Within minutes, comment sections filled with people asking what he meant, why he chose this moment, and whether this was simply commentary or something more layered. Fans of Jay-Z reacted fast, forming two very different emotional camps. Some dismissed it instantly, saying this was classic internet noise mixed with old rival energy, nothing more than a loud personality sharing an opinion. Others, even those who considered themselves loyal supporters, admitted they felt uncomfortable with how easily the post blended into the wider narrative online. Nobody wanted to say anything was true, but nobody could deny how quickly the conversation escalated. Timelines became crowded with reaction clips, stitched videos, and people revisiting moments from the past that suddenly felt relevant again, even if they never had before. What stood out most was how little was actually said compared to how much was assumed. Creators on every platform began offering interpretations, each one framed as commentary, each one insisting they were only reacting to public conversation. Some described it as a power move, others framed it as a
warning, and a few suggested it was simply trolling taken too seriously. Emotions ran high as fans debated intent rather than facts. One user wrote that the silence from those involved felt louder than any statement ever could, while another argued that responding would only make things worse. Industry watchers chimed in with their own perspectives, explaining that moments like this are rarely about truth in the beginning. They are about perception, timing, and the way narratives form before anyone can slow them down. Once a name enters a heated discussion, even indirectly, it becomes almost impossible to separate commentary from assumption. People start connecting dots that may not belong together, not because they want to believe something bad, but because humans naturally search for patterns when uncertainty is high. This is how speculation grows legs and starts walking on its own. Meanwhile, fans began pulling up old interviews, not as proof, but as context. Lines that once felt harmless were now replayed with new curiosity. Jokes were reinterpreted, expressions were analyzed, and pauses were given meaning they never had before. This did not mean anything new was discovered, but it showed how quickly perspective can shift when the atmosphere changes. People were not watching to confirm guilt or innocence, they were watching to understand the moment they felt they were living through. The broader online environment made everything feel heavier. Discussions about influence, accountability, and power were already dominating social spaces, and any figure associated with long-standing success naturally became part of that conversation. 50 Cent's voice entering this environment did not create the tension, but it interacted with it in a way that amplified emotions. Some praised him for saying what others were thinking, even if vaguely. Others criticized him for adding fuel to an already volatile situation. Neither side could agree, but both sides were deeply invested. What made the situation feel even more intense was how fast it traveled beyond core fan circles. Casual observers, people who rarely comment on music drama, suddenly had opinions. They were not discussing lyrics or albums, they were discussing character, history, and what responsibility public figures have when conversations turn serious. For some, this felt like a cultural crossroads, where entertainment, commentary, and real-world implications blurred into one confusing stream. Inside fan communities, conversations became more personal. Some fans admitted they felt conflicted, not because they believed any claims, but because they were tired of constant controversy surrounding figures they admired. Others said they felt protective, frustrated that commentary could snowball into something that felt unfair. There were also voices urging calm, reminding everyone that speculation has a habit of collapsing once attention shifts. But even those voices acknowledged that this moment felt different, not because of what was said, but because of how it landed. Behind the scenes, people speculated about strategy. Some wondered whether staying silent was the smartest move, allowing the noise to burn itself out. Others argued that silence invites interpretation, giving space for others to define the story. Every option seemed risky, and every hour without clarification became part of the narrative itself. The lack of response was not proof of anything, yet it became another layer for commentators to analyze. As the day went on, the conversation did not fade, it evolved. It became less about the original post and more about what it represented. Fans debated whether entertainers should avoid commentary during sensitive moments, or whether commentary itself is a form of participation that reflects public sentiment. This debate split audiences even further, turning comment sections into emotional battlegrounds. Phrases like "fans are shocked" and "emotions ran high" were no longer exaggerations, they accurately described the mood online. By the time night fell, the situation had grown far beyond a single post. It had become a symbol of how quickly modern narratives form, how easily commentary can be interpreted as implication, and how fragile public perception can be when timing and history collide. Nothing new had been confirmed,
Nothing concrete had emerged, yet the weight of the moment lingered. People logged off still thinking about it, wondering whether this would quietly disappear, or whether the conversation had already reached a point where it could not simply fade away. The following morning, the atmosphere online felt heavier, as if the conversation had aged overnight. People woke expecting clarity, maybe a statement, maybe a denial, maybe anything that would give shape to the chaos, but instead they found more questions. Reaction videos multiplied, each one framed carefully as opinion, commentary, or analysis, yet all circling the same emotional core. Nobody was saying this is true, but everyone was saying this feels important. That distinction mattered, yet it did little to calm the storm. Fans began arguing not just about the post itself, but about intention. Was this a calculated move meant to provoke discussion, or was it an offhand comment that took on a life of its own? Supporters of 50 Cent claimed this was his style, that he has always spoken freely and reacted to the moment without concern for how it lands. Critics pushed back, saying that timing matters, especially when public conversations are already charged. Neither side could prove their point, yet both spoke with certainty, driven more by emotion than logic. Within fan communities, tensions rose as loyalties were tested. Group chats that once revolved around music and nostalgia now felt strained, filled with debates that turned personal. Some fans accused others of being too defensive, while others accused critics of jumping to conclusions. Friendships were tested over differing interpretations of a single caption. Emotions ran high, and the sense of division grew stronger with every passing hour. Media commentators added another layer by framing the situation as a reflection of culture rather than individuals. They spoke about how modern audiences consume drama, how speculation spreads faster than confirmation, and how commentary becomes entertainment in itself. This framing did not resolve anything, but it gave viewers a new lens. Some appreciated the broader perspective, while others felt it distracted from the names and faces they were emotionally invested in. What made the situation even more complex was the resurfacing of unrelated moments that were now being stitched into the narrative. Clips that once lived quietly in archives were suddenly trending again, not because they proved anything, but because they fit the mood. Viewers watched them differently now, projecting current emotions onto past footage. The context had shifted, and with it, the interpretation. People were not uncovering secrets, they were reinterpreting memories. Family and close circles became an unspoken part of the conversation. Fans speculated about how loved ones might be feeling watching this unfold, even though none of that was public. This speculation added a human layer to the drama, reminding viewers that behind every headline and trending topic are real people navigating public pressure. Some fans expressed sympathy, urging others to remember that commentary affects more than just public image. Others dismissed this, arguing that public figures accept scrutiny as part of their lives. The silence from those directly involved continued, and with it came a new wave of interpretation. Some saw the silence as confidence, a sign that there was nothing to address. Others saw it as strategic restraint, a way to avoid legitimizing speculation. Still others interpreted it as avoidance, though they acknowledged that this was only their feeling, not a fact. Silence became a mirror, reflecting whatever belief the viewer already held. Online polls and question boxes popped up everywhere, asking audiences what they thought was really going on. The results were split, revealing how divided the audience had become. Some answered that this was being blown out of proportion, while others said the timing made it impossible to ignore. Many selected the option that simply said unsure, a quiet admission that they were caught between curiosity and caution. As the hours passed, the narrative shifted again, this time focusing on legacy. Commentators discussed how long careers create long shadows, how success brings scrutiny, and how every action is weighed against history. This was no longer about one post or one reaction, but about how reputations are built and challenged over time. Fans reflected on their own journeys with the music, recalling when it first mattered to them, and how strange it felt to now associate those memories with controversy. Some voices tried to pull the conversation back to reality, reminding viewers that commentary is not confirmation. They emphasized that online discussions often lack nuance, turning complex situations into simplified narratives. These voices urged patience, critical thinking, and emotional restraint. Their comments received support, but they were often drowned out by louder, more dramatic takes that promised revelations and twists. The pressure on content creators increased as audiences demanded constant updates. Even when there was nothing new to report, creators felt compelled to revisit the topic, offering fresh angles on the same information. This repetition did not bring clarity, but it kept the story alive. Viewers, caught between fatigue and fascination, continued to click, comment, and share, fueling the cycle they often claimed to dislike. Offline, the impact was subtle but real. Fans reported feeling distracted, unsettled, and even disappointed by how quickly discussions
turned toxic.
Some chose to step back, muting keywords and avoiding comment sections. Others leaned in harder, convinced that staying informed meant staying engaged. Both reactions came from the same place, a desire to make sense of something that felt unresolved. By the end of the second day, the conversation had become a living thing, shaped by thousands of voices, each adding their own emotion and interpretation. Nothing had been confirmed, nothing had been denied, yet the story felt heavier than when it began. It was no longer just about commentary, it was about how commentary shapes perception. Fans were left divided, uncertain, and emotionally invested, wondering whether this moment would eventually dissolve into internet history, or whether it was setting the stage for an even more intense chapter ahead. By the third stretch of the conversation, the tone online had shifted from shock to tension. People were no longer reacting in real time, they were settling into positions. Narratives hardened, opinions became identities, and neutrality started to feel rare. Fans who once hovered on the sidelines now felt pressured to choose a side, even if they were unsure why. The debate was no longer about a single post, it was about trust, influence, and who gets to shape public conversations when facts are absent but feelings are strong. Commentators began speaking about power dynamics, not as accusations, but as themes. They questioned how much weight certain voices carry and how easily a few words can redirect attention during sensitive moments. Some argue that commentary from influential figures acts like a spotlight, illuminating conversations that were already happening quietly. Others countered that such commentary acts more like a spark, igniting reactions that might not have reached this level otherwise. Neither view offered resolution, but both deepened the emotional complexity of the moment. Fans also started examining themselves, asking why this particular situation felt so consuming. Some admitted that the lack of clarity made it addictive, a puzzle with no solution. Others said it tapped into a broader fatigue with constant controversy, where entertainment and discomfort blurred together. People wanted answers, but they also wanted the story to end, a contradiction that fueled endless scrolling and discussion. Private messages and leaked screenshots, often taken out of context, began circulating, adding another layer of confusion. None of these pieces proved anything, yet they were treated as clues by those eager to find meaning. Disclaimers appeared everywhere. Phrases like allegedly and reportedly became common, not because they added certainty, but because they allowed conversations to continue without crossing lines. This careful language did little to slow speculation, but it gave people permission to keep talking. Family dynamics and personal relationships became a popular topic among commentators, even though no new information existed. People speculated about stress, strain, and private conversations happening behind closed doors. Some expressed empathy, imagining what it must feel like to watch public debates swirl around loved ones. Others dismissed these concerns, saying public life comes with public scrutiny. Once again, the audience split, reflecting different values rather than different facts. The absence of direct confrontation kept the tension simmering. There were no heated interviews, no explosive responses, no thematic walkbacks. Instead, the story lived in reactions to reactions, commentary layered on top of commentary. Each new video promised insight, yet delivered interpretation. Viewers were aware of this, but many continued watching anyway, drawn by the emotional pull of unresolved drama. Some longtime fans expressed sadness rather than anger. They spoke about how moments like this change how music feels, even if nothing concrete has been proven. Songs once tied to personal memories now carried an extra layer of discomfort, not because of guilt or innocence, but because association alone can alter perception. Others rejected this idea, insisting that art should remain separate from online discourse. This disagreement added yet another fracture to the already divided audience. Industry analysts noted that this kind of moment often marks a transition, not necessarily a downfall or a redemption, but a shift in how public figures are discussed. Once a narrative enters the mainstream conversation, even temporarily, it becomes part of the collective memory. People may forget details, but they remember that something happened, that a question was raised. That memory influences future reactions, creating a ripple effect that lasts longer than the initial spark. Meanwhile, the pressure to respond grew louder, even as many acknowledged that a response might change nothing. Some fans demanded clarity, believing silence allowed speculation to flourish. Others argued that responding would legitimize rumors and give them more oxygen. The debate over whether to speak or stay silent became almost as intense as the original discussion, reflecting how deeply invested people had become. The role of media itself came under scrutiny. Viewers questioned why certain stories gain traction while others fade quickly. Some accused platforms of amplifying drama for engagement, while others blamed audiences for rewarding sensationalism with clicks and shares. This self-awareness did not stop participation, but it added a layer of guilt and reflection to the experience. People knew they were part of the cycle, even as they criticized it. As time passed, exhaustion set in for some. Comment sections showed signs of fatigue, with users expressing frustration at the lack of progress. They wanted either confirmation or closure, anything to break the loop. Yet even this exhaustion became content, with creators discussing burnout, outrage cycles, and the emotional toll of constant controversy. The story fed on itself, evolving without moving forward. Still, curiosity remained. Viewers continued to watch for subtle shifts, reading into tone changes, body language, and indirect references. A casual comment in an unrelated interview could reignite discussion, not because it revealed anything new, but because it could be interpreted through the existing lens. This hyper-awareness kept the narrative alive, ensuring that nothing related would pass unnoticed. By this point, the situation had transformed from a moment into a mood. It hovered over conversations, resurfaced unexpectedly, and influenced how new information was received. People were no longer asking what happened, they were asking what this all meant. Was it a lesson about online culture, a reflection of collective anxiety, or simply another example of how fast commentary can spiral? As the days blurred together, one thing became clear to many observers. This was not a story driven by facts, but by feelings. It revealed how easily uncertainty fills space when clarity is absent, and how quickly audiences project their fears, loyalties, and frustrations on public figures. The drama did not need new developments to survive. It was sustained by emotion alone, waiting for whatever moment might finally shift it in a definitive direction. By the time the conversation reached its later phase, something subtle had changed. The volume had not dropped, but the tone softened, shifting from raw reaction to uneasy reflection. People were still talking, still debating, but there was a growing awareness that speculation alone could not carry the story forever. Fans began asking not what would be exposed next, but what this moment had already revealed about the culture watching it unfold. The drama had become a mirror, showing how quickly audiences lean into narratives even when they are built on suggestion rather than substance. Some observers pointed out that moments like this often peak without a climax. There is no dramatic reveal, no final statement that ties everything together. Instead, the conversation slowly loses urgency, replaced by the next wave of online attention. This idea frustrated those who wanted resolution, but it also brought relief to others who felt overwhelmed by the constant intensity. The lack of escalation began to feel like an ending in itself, not because questions were answered, but because the emotional energy started to level out. Fans revisited the original post again, this time with calmer eyes. What once felt explosive now seemed restrained, almost minimal. People noticed how much of the drama had been created around it rather than within it. This realization sparked a quieter discussion about responsibility, not just for public figures, but for audiences as well. Some admitted they had filled in gaps with assumptions, carried by the momentum of group emotion rather than individual judgment. This honesty did not erase the tension, but it shifted the focus inward. Conversations turned toward legacy and longevity. Commentators reflected on how long careers inevitably pass through moments of controversy. Some deserved, some exaggerated, and many misunderstood. They spoke about how public figures become symbols onto which audiences project hopes, frustrations, and fears. In this framing, the situation felt less like a scandal and more like a stress test, revealing how reputations bend under pressure without necessarily breaking. There was also a renewed emphasis on separating commentary from conclusion. Creators reminded viewers that discussing public reactions is not the same as declaring truth. This distinction, while obvious in theory, had been blurred by days of emotional engagement. Hearing it repeated felt grounding to some, though others felt it came too late. Still, the reminder lingered, encouraging a slower, more thoughtful approach to future conversations. Inside fan spaces, the temperature cooled. Arguments gave way to quiet exchanges, with people acknowledging that they might never fully agree. Some apologized for heated words, others chose to step back entirely. The sense of division did not disappear, but it softened, replaced by a shared fatigue. Fans realized that endless debate without new information only deepened frustration rather than providing clarity. The absence of further commentary from those at the center remained unchanged, and over time, that consistency took on a different meaning. What once felt like avoidance now felt like stability. Whether intentional or not, the lack of response allowed the story to settle, rather than spike again. Analysts noted that silence can sometimes function as a boundary, signaling that speculation has reached its limit. Media attention began to drift, not abruptly, but gradually. Headlines moved on, trending lists refreshed, and audiences found new topics to dissect. This shift did not erase what happened, but it reduced its immediacy. The story became something people referenced rather than actively chased. Screenshots stopped circulating as frequently, and reaction videos slowed, replaced by retrospectives rather than live commentary. Looking back, many fans describe the experience as emotionally intense, but strangely inconclusive. There was no villain revealed, no hero crowned, just a collective moment of tension that eventually exhaled. Some felt disappointed by the lack of answers, while others felt grateful that it did not spiral further. Both reactions existed side by side, reflecting the complexity of audience expectations in the digital age. The most lasting impact seemed to be a heightened awareness of how narratives form. Viewers became more conscious of how quickly suggestion turns into belief, and how easily commentary is mistaken for implication. This awareness did not guarantee restraint in the future, but it planted a seed of skepticism. Some fans expressed hope that next time, conversations might slow down before emotions take over. In the end, the situation settled into memory rather than resolution. It became another chapter in the ongoing story of how culture reacts to uncertainty. There were no definitive answers, but there were lessons about timing, perception, and the power of words even when they claim nothing. The drama faded not because it was solved, but because it reached the natural limit of what speculation could sustain. As audiences moved forward, many carried a quiet reminder with them that commentary, no matter how casual, can shape conversations far beyond intention, that silence can be interpreted in countless ways, and that in moments of collective tension, it is often emotion, not evidence, that drives the loudest reactions. The story did not end with clarity, but it did end with reflection, leaving behind a lingering understanding of how fragile and powerful public narratives can be. Before you click away, take a moment to think about everything that unfolded here. This story was never about proving something happened or declaring anyone guilty. It was about watching how commentary, timing, and public emotion collide in real time. You saw how a few words sparked massive reactions, how fans were shocked, how emotions ran high, and how quickly the internet filled in gaps with its own assumptions. Now the question turns to you. How do you feel about moments like this, when so much noise exists but so few answers are available? Do you think commentary from influential figures helps conversations or complicates them even more? Does silence calm a situation, or does it invite speculation to grow? This is where your voice matters. If you found yourself questioning, reflecting, or even disagreeing with parts of this discussion, that reaction is exactly why conversations like this continue. Drop your thoughts in the comments and let others know how you see it. Whether you believe this was blown out of proportion or think it revealed something deeper about online culture, your perspective adds another layer to the conversation. If you want more deep dives that break down viral moments without jumping to conclusions, make sure you like this video so it reaches others who enjoy thoughtful commentary. Subscribe to the channel if you want to stay updated on the latest entertainment stories, where we focus on reactions, narratives, and the way public conversations evolve, not on making claims or pushing rumors as facts. And before you go, share this video with someone who has been following this situation closely. Sometimes the best discussions happen when different viewpoints meet. Stay curious, stay critical, and keep questioning what you see online, because in moments like these, understanding the conversation is just as important as watching it unfold.